the whys change over time. I feel like when you're starting out with that first business, part of it is a very selfish why. Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Art of E-commerce. We've got my co-host, Tony.
Great to be here.
How you feeling?
I'm excited for this one.
Live from Madrid. It's a hot day here in Madrid. How you finding Madrid, bro?
I love it. Honestly, like the city itself is it's pure desert heat in the middle of Europe. It's amazing stuff. Yesterday was like 39 degrees.
Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah.
Great stuff. You are a bit weird. You do love the heat.
Honestly, I don't know what to say.
Intense heat.
I do. It goes above 30 degrees and my eyes just spark up.
Damn. But dude, I don't know about you, but we're getting pretty comfortable. Well, we're getting better with this podcast. We're finding our groove. I just wrapped up a long day of sales calls and team calls and deep work. But I'm pretty hungry. Actually, very hungry. But there's nothing else on my mind than recording this podcast. Like, I genuinely am having fun with it.
Me too.
I wasn't expecting that.
Me too. Honestly, like I think it's very evident to see the improvement we've done over the last few days, and it just goes to show like it is just about putting the numbers in and getting the reps in and really, progressing through that. I'm sure that in a week's time, maybe we're looking back at what we're doing now and thinking, wow, like could have done much better. But, we've passed through that first hurdle and now we're doing some good talks, man.
We are, man. And today we're talking about, the why, right? And the importance of having a crystal clear why. I mean, is it even important, right? Because we'll talk about how it will shift over time. And I think it's a really important topic because this is something that can really make or break your entrepreneurial journey. Like if you don't have the right foundational fuel on fire under your ass, you can have the right guidance, you can have the right strategies, but no one is going to be knocking on your door, in the morning, early in the morning for you to get up and do the work. So having this, understanding what your motivation is and understanding how to tap into this fuel that you've got inside that everyone, every single one of us has inside is absolutely powerful.
100%. And I think, honestly, it's also important to say, like, not everyone in the world is going to be a visionary, right? Like, not everyone in the world is going to think of these big things. And some people really are just better at getting their head down and being told what to do and executing, right? And, I think you can really classify people as like the why people and the how people in that sense, right? Or like we would say earlier, like the executioners and the visionaries. Yeah. But at the same time, any executioner needs to have a vision and needs to have like a purpose, right? Like something guiding what they're doing. Because in the end of the day, if you don't, then like, what are you even working on? Why are you doing these things? Right. These are the things that set the sail on the ship.
Right. And can you define for the audience the main difference between the people who are kind of wires, right? And this, a concept that Simon Sinek has popularized or, talks about in his book, Start With Why, right? So can you, for the audience, can you tell that, can you basically explain the difference between wires and howers, essentially the people that focus on the why and the people that focus on the how?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the way he does it is the people who have the why and are driven by the why, they really aim to put the vision in things, right? And a lot of times these people actually need a team around them because they're the Walt Disneys of this world, right? Who without his brother, for example, would have probably run the company to the ground because he didn't know how accounting worked or how to control his cash flows. So the why person is the person with the vision, the person that knows where to go and what to do to get there. The how people are the ones that the why people need around them to be able to actually get to the places they want to go and to be able to execute the plans and think of the more micro details. Yeah. Yep. But it's also important because in this book he makes the distinction between CEOs that are how types and why types, right? And how, for example, at Microsoft, I'm forgetting the guy's name now, something with a B, Baumer maybe, came in after Bill Gates. And Bill Gates, of course, he's a peculiar type of guy, but definitely a visionary nonetheless. And this guy who replaced him was very much a how type of guy, right? And Microsoft, over those years, after like post Bill Gates, really lost its sense of innovation, cutting edge, and they were kind of just like maintaining their position and being good at what they were doing, but not really cutting new territory. And that really comes with the why people.
Right. Yeah, I think behind, usually you see this in a lot of companies, right? Behind every visionary, there's a practitioner or an executor. But yeah, I think understanding that distinction is really important.
100%, and it's very, it's two completely different types of people, and you can normally tell just by speaking to these people, the types of things they like speaking about, the types of things they do in their free time, even. But having said that, and like we were alluding to earlier, not having your why as a person, even if you are the execution guy, if you are the guy coding behind the computer, if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, there will come a point in life, if it's not now, then maybe in 5-10 years, but you're going to feel lost. You're not really going to know what you're doing and why you're here. Based on your experiences and your journey so far, when you first started, right? And, even before you were in university, let's put it back to you, 16-year-old in school, starting your first like clothing line.
Yeah.
What was your why? What was driving you?
Yeah. I think, and the whys change over time. I feel like when you're starting out with that first business, part of it is a very selfish why. It's either very selfish, so I want to do this because I want to, either validate myself that I can do this, or I want to prove to certain people that I can, or I want to, I want to prove to my parents that I don't have to go down the traditional route. So it's very self-centered. For me, it was part of that, I think, like the validation aspect, as well as I always had an image for myself that was like bigger, I'm bigger and better, and I didn't want to settle for mediocrity, right? Like I think that was part of it, and understanding that like I wanted to do something, I just didn't know the right path, but the worst thing that I could do is not do, right? So I just did whatever thing I just could come up with, but that's kind of like part of it, and the if you think about those whys, a lot of them are self-centered, but a lot of it is like is fueled by negative energy, negative emotions, right? And I think a lot of people either condemn other people for having this, being fueled by negative energy at the start. And quite frankly, although it would be great to be able to realize this, it's just kind of tough, right? At the start, to operate purely from a positive energy and from like this high frequency where you're just creating and you're tapped into your flow and you're tapped into your essence and you just want to put amazing stuff out there for people to enjoy and find value and get value from, right? And so I've, one of the things that I've seen from my journey is at first is very self-centered, is very negative energy driven. But as you start scaling, as you start shifting through the different levels of entrepreneurship, and as you start getting more experience under your belt, a bunch of wins under your belt, it kind of shifts to more positive energy, where now I understand the type of impact that I want to leave, right? I'm thinking about legacy, but I'm also thinking about training others and bringing others up with me, also sending the elevator down, right? And so I feel like your whys change a lot as the journey progresses. I don't think a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people are just so paralyzed by not knowing what their why actually is at the start. And they're like, but what's my mission? What am I passionate about on all these big questions? I think you just have to get in the trenches to realize a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, man. And I think, one of the most powerful talks that we had, like, in my opinion, at least a couple years back, was when I was really asking, like you were right at the start of your agency journey, you were like grinding on it, and we were having lunch one day, and I was like, dude, why do you keep going at it so hard? Like, what's the point, And then you told me about this concept of the fire under your ass, right? And it was like I came to realize that, like, at that point in time in my life, I had nothing that was really burning and making me go and do these things, right? But you had it there, and it was like present. And now that you were speaking about like negative energy and positive energy later, would you say that relates to like inspiration versus desperation, and the fact that at the start, like, it's almost desperation because you're trying to get out of the situation you're in to craft something better? I
think that's a great point. I think when you're moving out of, so as you said, right, people can either move out of inspiration or essentially away from pain or towards pleasure, right? Or also out of inspiration or desperation. And so I feel like when you're starting, a lot of it is desperation, right? Like you just want to make a few bucks, like you want to, I don't know, get to 10K a month, or, you know, all this stuff, right? Which is more desperation than inspiration. And I feel like when you're resonating at that frequency where you need stuff and you're like going at it, which I'm not saying, you know, like it just makes sense when you're starting out for most people. It's really hard to tap into inspiration, and it's really hard to tap into that higher frequency where you're thinking about, you know, some of the things you can create for the world and all this stuff, right? And so, yeah, absolutely. And it's like it's something that a lot of people just have to like come to terms with. I feel like at the start.
And do you think that, like, for someone like me back then, right? Like, and this is something I even struggle with, thinking back, right? But like, if someone is, let's say, like, I mean, lost is a big word, but like, not really, the kind of just going through the motions, right? Just showing up to uni, doing their day, coming home, watching TV, going to sleep, and getting ready to start it all over again, and just kind of, again, going through the motions. Is there something that can really flip the switch? Is there something you can do, or is it really just down to the individual in the end of the day?
It's a great question, and it's a very tough question, and a question that I've been debating for the longest time. Because at the start, when you get started in the personal development journey or entrepreneurship journey, you're like, why isn't everyone doing this? You know, like, I want my friends to know about this e-commerce thing and this agency thing. I want, you know, everyone to know about, like, I don't know, meditation and all that stuff, right? And I feel like it comes down to everyone has a different journey, and I feel like you can expose someone to certain experiences that may open this person's eyes to, and then all of a sudden feel, you know, light a fire under their ass that wasn't quite there yet, because they hadn't opened their eyes to possibilities. So I feel like a lot of people don't even know what's possible, what's out there, and so their mind cannot even conceive, right? They cannot even conceive that this is possible. And as soon as they see someone do it, or as soon as they see someone crush it, right, they're like, shit, I know I can do that. I want to get out of this situation. I just needed to see how it could be done, or I just need to see a vehicle. That's why I'm a massive fan of, like, that's why I share my numbers, and that's why I share my mentees, like, numbers and results, because it can inspire someone, it can open someone's eyes, and all of a sudden you've lit a fire under their ass, right? Because they had the fire, it just wasn't lit because they couldn't find a match or something like that, right? So that's one, you know, that's a certain group of people. Then there's another group of people that they can see it, right? They can conceive it. They know it's out there, but they just don't have the fire. They're either too comfortable, or they have a lot of limiting beliefs. And for those people, I feel like, you know, they just have a different process, and so they might realize that they might light this fire under their ass at some point in their life, but something's gonna have to happen, or something, life is gonna have to teach them a lesson for them to be able to have that fire. So I think there's two groups of people, and that's kind of what I've learned from my journey. You know, seeing also what, you know, some of my mentees, you know, what they have in common, right? And also just people in my network, seeing people that they have this fire, they just haven't lit it yet because they don't know what's out there and what's possible. But then there's other people that are just so comfortable, or they're not ready to take that step, that they just, if in the future they are to do this, it's gonna have to be done by life just teaching them a lesson.
Absolutely, man. And I mean, I'll touch on both groups, but I think the second group, it's also just important to acknowledge the fact that, like, in the end of the day, not everyone in the world is gonna be striving for the greatest heights, right? Not everybody's gonna want to make 100K a month. Not everybody's gonna want to have their own brands. Not everybody's gonna want to grind until they can't anymore, and really try to make it in life. You know, like, some people, as you said, are just comfortable and just want to go through the motions. And, you know, in the end of the day, if that's what someone wants to do, like, that's what they're gonna do in the end of the day, right? Like, there's no stopping them.
At the end of the day, if you're happy, you're good. You know, like, there's no need to make a change. But I'm curious. I think I know the answer to this, but maybe you think you're a complete different, like, you don't agree with my two groups, and maybe, like, you think you were in a third group. But if you were to put yourself in one of those groups when you first, like, saw me kind of come up and put my head down and work my agency and build my business, and you, as you said, you didn't have quite the fire under your ass, what group would you have put yourself in?
That's the thing. I wouldn't call it so in such a like bipolar way.
Yeah.
Like I would say there's a lot of overlap. I mean, the thing I was gonna touch on in the first group, which I think really relates to what I saw in your journey, especially after we were away for a while. Because while I was with you, it was kind of just like everyday thing, you know, like I was doing my thing, you were doing yours, we'd come together for lunch, like we're living parallel lives within the same household, right? But for me, it's this concept that you touched on, like the 4-minute mile, right? And like for, you know, it's a pretty wide spoken concept nowadays, but like just to highlight the nature of it, it's like if you, like the first person to run the 4-minute mile, before they did it, it was thought of as like impossible, right? And then once they broke it, it was like, I don't know, 2 weeks later, someone had already beaten that, and months later, people just kept doing it, right? So, you know, it just goes to show that something is possible, right? And by doing that, I think, you know, your success definitely opened my eyes as to like how limitless life can actually be. You know, how far you can actually go if you put in the work, and like the fact that it's not just like, oh, he was a fluke, or oh, freak of nature or something like that. No, like if you put in the work and you're willing to take rejection, and you're willing to grow, and you're willing to do things that other people aren't willing to do, you can get where you want, right? And I think I read this really important quote, in my opinion, from one of the mentees in the group, and it's by Jordan B. Peterson, and it's something along the lines of, we all have sacrifices that we have to make, right? And it's just about choosing the sacrifice you're gonna do, right? So for example, if you're choosing to watch TV and to eat like shit and to not do much with your life, you're sacrificing greater success in the future. If you're sacrificing those things while you have your head down and working so that you can get there in the future, these are the things you're sacrificing. You're sacrificing the immediate pleasures with the view of the long-term aim.
Yeah, it's funny, right? It's funny that a lot of people, I feel like the main misconception that people have around success is that these people, they're just freaks. And I think that's why like your point was so powerful. The fact that one of the things about my journey is I was just, you know, I put the reps in, you know, and like you can see it from when I was starting out to like where I'm at now. It's just a byproduct of putting the reps and constantly showing up, and, you know, every single day showing up, optimizing, and obviously trusting my gut, but putting in the work, right? And I feel like that's it's a concept that once you grasp, you realize you just have to take extreme ownership of your life. Like you are responsible for the outcome you're getting in life, and it just exposes all excuses for people. It's just like, oh shit, like I was coming up with that guy, you know, and that's why some people cannot face it and they struggle with it. But it's kind of, it just exposes all excuses because you were coming up with this person, and, you know, maybe you had similar goals, because some people, as you said, like some people are completely fine. I'm not saying everyone should, or I'm not saying everyone should go on that journey, but it exposes all excuses for people who are, you know, who have this delusions of grandeur, right? And are just not putting in the work.
Exactly. No, and the delusions of grandeur is a big thing because, you know, especially growing up, a lot of people have these big dreams. Oh, I'm going to do this. Oh, I'm going to be president. Oh, I'm going to be a millionaire. Oh, I'm going to be, I don't know, I'm going to own an island. All these things, right? Cool, you can do that. And, you know, people are proving that it's possible, you know, like, and your 4-minute mile, for example, has proved that for me. But at the same time, if you're saying those things and then you're not doing shit, and then 5 years later, you're literally like 1 college degree, 1,000 parties, and 2,000 hangovers later, and you haven't moved very far beyond that, you know, like that's when you can really start questioning things.
Yeah. Honestly, just as a rule of thumb, don't say shit. Like don't talk to me about the things you're gonna do. Just no one wants to hear it. Really, like no one cares. In fact, if you tell them, they're actually just expecting delusions of grandeur. Like they're literally just like, yeah, they're watching out for your failure, because people. I feel like when people talk about, and that's another thing that I want to, because we're talking about starting with why, right, and finding your why. That's not a big thing that people need to understand. It doesn't have to be this big why. It doesn't have to be this outspoken why, like this is what I'm gonna do, and here's how I'm gonna. No, just it doesn't have. It could be a very small thing, and I'm doing this because I want to quit college, or and you don't have to really tell people about it. Like it could just be a very internal thing where it just kind of drives you every single day, and it pushes you. You're tapping into your essence, and it pushes you forward. So yeah, that's another thing to keep in mind. The fact that if you're talking about your big why to everyone, chances are, not for everyone, but chances are you're probably not putting in the work. Instead, you should be actually doing instead of talking.
And I don't know how you feel about this, but I've always thought that the people who talk the most end up being the ones who do the least, And again, is these people that just like go on and on about what they're gonna do, what's gonna happen next year, what life is gonna look like in 5 years' time. Like then you meet them in a year's time and they're still talking about the same things, or they've changed their dream slightly, but like they're still on the same couch, still watching the same movies, still playing the same video games that they were the year before. And again, like there's power in keeping stuff to yourself and really just letting the actions do the talking, right?
Yeah, especially because once you get to a certain level, you can already tell whether someone is full of shit or not just by their character. Like I've had people reach out to me and they tell me about like some of the things that they've done, and you dig a bit deeper and it's just not true, and there's nothing wrong with it, like all love, but it's confirmed by their character and the way they show up and the way they handle themselves. There's something about someone who's been through the journey and who's gotten their face beaten down and bruised up that speaks way louder than your words. Like you just know, like they carry themselves differently, they speak differently, they've learned a bunch during that process. Like for example, if you've been successful in the with an agency or in that space, you know how to talk to people, like people skills, like and I'm not saying that's the only thing you need to be successful. Like another thing you need is being able to handle a team and being able to get people working together, right? And also being able to obviously deliver a great service, and you're data driven, all this stuff, right? But you just know the certain traits that make a winner in a specific space, and there's no hiding that. There's no, like, that's the biggest teller. Like, who are what person have you transformed yourself into? And that's not only the biggest win here, and that's something that people, the biggest thing you should be proud of, but also like the biggest teller of whether you're full of or you're actually it,
And what you said there at the end, how you transform yourself, like the person you transform yourself into is such a powerful concept.
At the end, I think what you end up realizing is that all these whys and all that stuff, they're cool, but my main why nowadays is the person I'm transforming myself into. Like that's the one thing that pumps me up. And again, it comes to, speaks about how we talked about, at the start, it's more negative energy driven for most people, right? Because you're coming at it from a lower frequency, but as you start scaling, it's just cool to see how you transform yourself and how you can impact yourself, but also the people around you by, your shift in energy and the way you carry yourself. Really, it's magnetic it's magnetic, and it's really cool to see how you can transform yourself in a short period of time.
And really just knowing that you can't be too low to start, right? Like there's no such thing as being, there's no such thing, firstly, as a bad time to start, and secondly, as a good time to start, right? Because like the longer you wait and there's like, oh, I'll be ready in like a year, I'll be ready in 2 years, like chances are you won't. There's no great time. There's no time where, things are just going to drop off in your life and you're going to have all this free time to do what it is that you want to do and pursue these things. It's really about making the time and making priorities and chasing after it.
Yeah. I mean, we could do a whole podcast on that, but is this idea that a lot of people, before they begin, they're like, oh, I need to be an expert at this before I do this thing. No, like you you execute, right? You dive into it, and as you go, you become an expert at it, because that's really the only way to truly develop yourself, right? And to truly hone in your skills by executing. And that mindset is just so far from the truth.
For sure.
But I think that's a good way to wrap this episode. If you guys enjoyed it and you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and smash the like button and make sure you subscribe. And if you're watching on Spotify, iTunes, make sure you leave us a review and subscribe for more episodes. And with that being said, we'll speak on the next episode. Peace.